Okay, let's read problem number 1 in lab 5. Write a program using class concept to roll the dice and get random values in each rolling. Okay, so the output should be like this, like type tuple values in each rolling. You have to get different set of pair of dice values. This is how. So the output should be like that. Okay, so let's discuss about the algorithm. You're going to write a program using the class concept, and whenever you call that, whenever you run the program, it has to give you different dice values randomly. What is the input? Do you need to give the input? No, randomly you're going to take the input. What is the output? Randomly, whatever you get, you're going to print it as output. So the input and output is clear, right? So let's work on the other concepts. If you want, you can write down the algorithm, but you don't need to submit it. But if for your understanding, you can write it down. Okay. So import random library. Maybe I will import random library, define a function, define a role. Maybe first I will explain it. Then we'll come to the code part. For your reference. So in case if any of you didn't complete, you can just look at the answer. Import random, right? So to import the random package, and we are going to define the class colon. This is the class syntax. And we are going to define the function. We're going to pass that input parameter, which is built in. You know the syntax, how to define the class. And then we're going to create variables. X, random dot, rand int. And what are the inputs? The dice will have, it will start from 1 and the maximum value is 6, right? That will be saved in one variable that we name it as X. And for the second value, we are creating another variable and we named it as Y. And this is that output that we want to print it out. So we are returning it, return XY. Okay, so this is the class definition. And we are going to give life to this by instantiating the object. Okay, I want you to write something like this, not simply the code. I want you to either write algorithm or else at least write the meaning of each step. Okay, either algorithm or the comments. Roll1 dot roll. It's the function. Then run it. Every time you run, you will get different answers. Right? Class, create a class named circle. With this class, you can calculate perimeter and area. I have given the formula to calculate the perimeter and area. Of course, you know, but yeah, the formula is given. Using this class, create instance with a radius 1 and 5, both. Okay, 1 and 5. This is the input that you are going to try. Call the two methods. Calculate the perimeter area for each instance. Print the result. The result should be printed in this format. I have given you the sample output here. So it should give you the answer like this. Your circle with radius 1 has an area of 3.14 and then like this. It should display the output. Okay, I'll run the code so that you will get the get some idea how it should look like. Then we'll discuss the algorithm. Okay, so when I run it, see, for 1 and 5, it should give you the answer like this. Okay. Okay, let's discuss the algorithm. And then fix whatever bugs that you have. You can fix it. So I'm just creating a class named circle. And then I'm defining a constructor. You know how to define a constructor. And this constructor, of course, it has self. That is the default parameter. And then here we want radius. Right? So this is the constructor method definition. And how we are going to assign values? Self dot radius, whatever variable that you give. You don't need to follow what the naming convention, what I am following. Then define the method for area, which of course has the default parameter attribute. And then we want to print it in the particular format. To do that formatting, where you all of you are familiar because you learned it in data programming 1 itself. Colon dot 2f means double decimal. After decimal point, we want to print double. Okay. Format 3.14 self dot radius pi r square, right? Self dot radius. So this is for the area method. Now we are going to define the method for perimeter with the default attribute, which is self. And then I'm just going to copy and paste to save some time. Feel free to do that. Pi r square, right? 2 pi r, right? 2 pi r. 2 pi r. So we have defined the method and we have defined the class. And then we are going to instantiate the object, right? So object 1, C1, circle, and with the radius 1. Set instantiation. Okay, so now method calling and putting it a variable, right? Area C1 dot area. You know how to call a method from the object. And another variable to hold the perimeter value. Again, object dot method name. What is the method name? Perimeter. And then we want to print it in some particular format. Print. You can refer your problem definition. A circle with radius 1 has an area of string concatenation. How will you do the string concatenation? String as this variable and perimeter. String as the value, perimeter. Okay, so that's it. You're going to do the same thing for the second. I don't want you to waste time. If you have written this, you can copy and paste and do it for the second value, which is 5. And now for this, the object is C2, or else it will call the same object, C2 and then C2. And then here you're printing out all the values. Okay, Selvira. Oh, radius 1. I have to change the values. Radius 5. The value is different, but okay. An area of this and this. Whatever you have to do to fix that formatting, do it. Okay. So this is how your output should look like for many of you. Create a class named bank balance with attribute balance. When you deposit, the balance will increase. When you withdraw, the balance will decrease. After you finish the class, create one account with balance $1,000 and another account with balance $2,000. Apply the deposit 100 and withdraw 500 on both instances, on both objects, okay? And calculate the final balance. Your output should look like this, okay? To give you some idea, I will run this so that you will understand what you need to get, and then we'll discuss the algorithm, okay? So you don't need to give any input. all those inputs are passed as an attribute value. Okay, so this is how it should run. So do you get how what you have to get as an input and output? Now let's discuss about the algorithm. On the solution, you can just see what you have missed here. I'm going to write the code for this. I don't know what name I gave, so balance or bank, whatever. Class name, balance. No, uppercase, always that for the class, the first should be uppercase, right? Balance. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it should be lowercase. Thank you. Def init self first parameter, default parameter, and then second parameter is going to be balance, right? And then self dot balance equal to balance, because that is the only variable that we have. We're going to update this value upon each method calling. Deposit is the next method that we are going to use. And for that, whatever the thing that attributes that properties that the object has, all of them, here it is balance. Or you can pass that balance here. Self dot balance. I think this will solve the problem. You have to say balance. Balance. And then do the update on the balance with this current deposit value. Okay. And do the same thing. I want to avoid typo error or to save some time. Feel free to copy and paste and change the values. Deposit withdraw. Same thing, but here for withdraw, we have to minus the value, right? Okay, so this is the class definition. Now let's do the object instantiation. We are going to create object and call it as account1. And then we are going to call the class with the initial attribute value, that is balance, which is going to be 1000. Okay, that will be assigned because automatically the constructor will be called upon this object instantiation. Okay, and then we're going to call the methods. You know the syntax for method calling: object dot method name. And what is the attribute? Balance value. It is going to be 100. We are going to pass, and that is going to affect the initial balance. And then for withdraw function, we're going to pass 500. That is going to update the balance amount with this. And then we are going to print the result. And if you check the different problem statement, it should look like this. The final balance is dollar amount. And we are going to do the string concatenation. And here is the deal, right? So we don't have any variable. We are not saving any final variable and we are not returning anything. We are just going to fetch the value from the memory itself, right? From the memory itself. How can you fetch the value from memory variable? By using object. So account dot balance. There are multiple ways that you can do it. Okay. But you need to learn all the values to make you to understand any kind of programming style. If you need to maintain any programming, you should be able to understand all kind of coding styles. So this one, we are creating another object and name it as account2. And this one, with this object, we are fetching the value. Okay. So when you run this code, you should be able to get this result. Okay. Class definition, object instantiation with the initial balance 1000. And the second object instantiation with the initial balance 2000. So these three problems should have given you good understanding on class definition, object instantiation, okay, using constructor, all those things. Okay, so in the upcoming problem, you will be able to solve a little bit more advanced concepts. So maybe we don't have much time, but we'll discuss problem number 4, and then I will let you to think about it. Okay, then we'll continue it in our next lab, on our next class. So I'll read the next problem. Think about it. We'll write the algorithm. Maybe we'll start working on algorithm, then complete it in the next class. Given the class triangle, complete the program to read and set the base and height of the triangle 1 and triangle 2. Determine which triangle's area is larger and output the larger triangle's information, making use of triangles relevant methods. So I have given you given how the output should look like. Okay, if you pass these 1, 2, 3, 4, these values, the 1 and 2 will be taken as the base and height of first triangle, and 3 and 4 will be taken as the base and height of second triangle. So it should do some comparison, it should do the calculation of area, and then it should do the comparison between the values, and then it should just print out the larger triangle's area along with its base and height. Did you understand? Okay, what we need to get it? Maybe I'll run it so that you will have a little bit more understanding on the input and output. Okay, so triangle. Okay, triangle 1. So I'm going to give 10 base and 20 as the height for the triangle 1, and 15 as the base of the triangle 2, and then 10 as the height of the triangle. So it says triangle with larger area 100. Maybe here I had to change it. Let me run it again. 10 and 20, 15 and 10. 10 is the height of the triangle number 2. Okay, so when I run it, let me interrupt it. Run it again. 10, 20, 30, 40. So it is pretty obvious the second triangle value has the highest base and height, and you can see it gives the area, that is the largest triangle area with the base, height, and area information. So this is how your output should look like. So you have to write the code accordingly. Let's discuss the algorithm, okay, and then continue coding later. Okay, so let's define class. A constructor, and you're just allocating some memory space for base. Okay, let me do a review. So we are going to define the class definition and define all methods. Then we are going to do the object instantiation and then call all the methods, including the getter. Then we will do the comparison and then print the result. So constructor definition is done. We are allocating some memory space for base and height through this constructor. And then defining the setters. So whatever attribute, if you use set underscore that attribute value, that is normally the thumb rule to use the setter. So the first parameter, self, okay, that depicts the object itself. So whatever method that has the self as an parameter, that simply shows that it can access all the properties of the class. User underscore base. So whatever is passed from the user that will be saved in this variable user base. That variable value will be assigned to the object attribute base. Do the same thing for height. So feel free to copy and paste. Set height. And the attribute value, the value you got from the user will be saved in the user height that will be passed. Okay, using this setter method, we are just assigning it to that attribute in that capsule, in that object. Whatever object is getting instantiated to that object. Okay, so we have done with the setters functionality of passing the attribute. Now we are going to do the getter functionality of getting the output. Okay, so here again, the thumb rule is use get underscore for getter and whatever the attribute. Here the attribute, the variable is area. And as usual, you don't need anything. All you need is that pass. That means it is the member of the class. Okay, that pass will be given by that self parameter. And we're going to create a variable. Okay, 0.5. What is the area of the triangle? Formula 1/2 into base into height. So we cannot give base into base. You have to say pass. What is the pass? Self. And then base. Same thing. Self dot height. Okay. So to access any member of the class, you have to specify the object dot the property. Okay. So inside the class definition, instead of saying object, you have to say self. So which simply means whatever object is currently instantiated, that object dot the attribute. That is the meaning. Okay. And then print info. Okay, the pass self is the pass for this, so pass that. And then we are going to print the result. Okay, here we are going to formulate the result, format the result. We're going to say base is going to be, if you check the output, how it should look like, say self dot base. Okay, and then colon dot double notation, double decimal location. And that will be here. Okay, feel free to copy and paste for height and area. Self dot height. And then area, self dot area. Okay, so this is for printer method. So we have defined all the method inside our class. So the class definition part is done. So next we have to do the object instantiation, right? So how can you do the object instantiation? T1 dot, sorry, T1 equal to the class triangle. Okay, and do the object instantiation for the second object, which we are going to name T2. So the object instantiation is done. Remember, if you don't have the algorithm as a separate cell, you have to have the commands. That commands will help you to reevaluate when you do it for your exam or homework. Have all those commands. When you review it, it will be helpful. User base, we are going to set the variable where we are going to prompt the user to get the input. Okay, to give the input. So we are saying enter the base for triangle 1. And then do the same thing. User height. Enter the height for triangle 1. Now we are going to pass these values using the setter. So this is for first triangle. So we have to use the object of T1 as the first object. Okay. Then set base, user base. You have ample amount of time with each problem. So if you have half completed code, since I'm going slow, you should be able to catch up very easily. Then user right. Okay. So here we are passing the setters. So I strongly recommend, even if I miss it, I'm just saying it. So even if I miss give the commands, you have to give the commands. I have this separate. So this is how I document it, algorithm separately. Okay. So you have to have the commands, setters for object one like that. Then do the same thing for the second triangle. So copy and paste the code and do the same thing for the triangle number 2. Okay. So set the base for triangle 2, set the height for triangle 2, and instantiate the call the object. That is here it is T2 object dot setters. Okay, setters for object 2. Okay, now we are done with the setters for. So now we are moving on to the third part of the algorithm where we are going to do the comparison. Okay, and then print the larger area. So you can say anyway, if you look at the code, we want it to be like this, right? So the output should look like this. The triangle with larger area, that should be displayed first. After that only, we are going to display the values, right? So to display it, here we have to print it because next we are going to process it and directly print the properties, right? So before that, say triangle with larger area. Okay, next, if T1 dot, what we have to call object dot method. Here it is getter method. What is the getter method? Get area, which we have already defined. So we are saying if the area of the first triangle is bigger, print what? Print the info that is associated with the object 1. So can you say that? T1 dot print info. Do you agree? When you say T1 dot print info, which object was alive by that time for that object instantiation? Whatever is passed for the prompt triangle 1 and that will be allowed, right? So those values will be activated and those values will be printed. Okay. Yes. If that is not the case, when you say T2 dot, what will happen? The variables, what you passed for T2, that will occupy the capsule by that time. That is the current resident in that class, right? So that resident's value will be retrieved. Agree with this? Yeah. Okay. Now we have everything done. Let's run the code. Where is the error? In line number 32. Okay, here I have to have the colon, right? What I missed? Colon. Okay, enter the base for triangle 1. Say 10 and height is 20. And the triangle 2, 30 and the height is 40. Okay, so it says some error. T1 dot get area. Oh, okay, here is the mistake. I didn't say T2. I said T1. Okay, now 10, 20, 30, and then 40. Again, another mistake. It is not supported. If T1 get area is greater than T2 get area. So since we didn't return that area, it throws some error. Now it should be good. Triangle 10, 20, 30 is the base for next triangle. What is the height? Still we have some error. Okay, what is that error? Object has no attribute. Okay, so why doesn't have any attribute? Self-written area is the mistake. So here, when you print it, since we call the method directly here, we are not saving it to some variable and then pass it. If you do that, then it is good. But here we are not passing it, saving it to some variable. We're just creating the variable for base and height. So that could be the thing. So we have to say object dot method, that get area method. Okay. So let's run it again. 10, 20, 30, 40. Oh my goodness. Still it doesn't get it. Let's see. Yeah, instead of, yeah, I don't know. Why did I do that? Self dot base, self dot height. I simply copied and pasted. So that's why. So two mistakes. Self dot object dot property name. And also I missed to change the height. Self dot height, user height. Does it make sense? Now, hopefully, it should have values 10, 20, 30, 40. A, we got it. Okay. So this is how you have to decode the problem. Problem number 5. Write a class to print GMT and PST. Greenwich Mean Time, Pacific Time. Okay. Time zones, the output should look like below. And you have to print the Greenwich Mean Time, Pacific Standard Time. Okay. And this is for 10, 15, and 12:45. The input should be 10:15. You have to give the Greenwich Mean Time with 10:15 and 12:45. And your code should calculate the Pacific Standard Time. Okay. And then print out the result. Did you get the problem? I'll run it so that you will have a little bit more clarity. Okay. So when I run this, it should standard output. You're not prompting the user to give the output. Okay. Standard output of 10:15 Greenwich Mean Time. You have to calculate the relative Pacific Standard Time. And 12:45, you have to calculate the Pacific Standard Time and print the output. You got some idea? Shall we write the algorithm for this? Yeah. Let's solve this. Problem number, sorry, 5. Okay. So for the Greenwich Mean Time conversion thing, we are going to create class. And since we are going to deal with time difference between the GMT and PST, we are going to create an attribute, okay, to hold that value of time difference. So initially that value of attribute is going to be 0. And we are going to change it when we calculate the time difference for Pacific Standard Time. Okay, so initially we are setting this attribute value to 0. This attribute belongs to the class time. And next, we are going to specify the methods. So first method is a constructor in it. And then always for all the properties, the methods of the class, you have to have this one parameter to handle the object, which depicts the current object, whatever object is instantiated. Self dot to deal with the hours. And this is also, we are setting it as 0 later on. The purpose of this constructor here is to just allocate some memory space to handle this variable. Okay, then we are setting the minutes as 0. Okay, next we are going to define a method, print time self. hours. Okay, hours is the only difference, right? So we can say hours dot hours plus offset, time difference. Okay, plus time difference. So the time difference is the attribute. Still, it is the class. So you cannot simply say time difference. You have to say self dot time difference. Okay, and then you're going to say print formatting to the format which we want. If you see how we want to print it, we want to have time and then dash dash. So we want it to be formatted like this, time dash dash. And then inside that, wherever you need to put the variables, that you have to put it inside the curly brace. Makes sense, right? So what you have to print? Hours. Since we have the hours as a variable here, we don't need to access self because we are just accessing it inside the class itself. So you don't need to say self dot hours because we have it as a variable here. But minutes, we don't have a separate variable, say minutes here. So for accessing minutes, anyway, you have to use that object self dot minutes. So we have done the formatting. So class definition is done. Next, we are going to do the object instantiation. T1, the class time. And the input is given already. We are going to do the calculation for hours 10, 15, and 12:45. So the hours for the first object is 10, and the minutes for the first object is going to be 15. Okay, does it make sense? Next, T2, object instantiation. T2 dot hours equal to 12 and T2 dot minutes equal to 45. Okay, now we are going to print the Greenwich Mean Time. So you can see how we want the output. It should say Greenwich Mean Time. This is exactly how we want to print it. So let's say, I'm just copying it. You can just type it. Greenwich Mean Time. T1 dot print. What is the print time? Okay, whatever you have given the method name, follow that. T2 dot print time. That will call that method. Okay, and now we have everything. So if you run it, it will just give you this. Okay, so but what is the next step? You have to calculate the Pacific Standard Time. Okay, for that you have only differences. Time difference is different. Okay, so you cannot, since this time difference is the member of the class, the attribute of the class, you cannot access it directly. And in the meantime, this is not related to object. This is standard for both the objects. Okay, since it is standard for both the objects, you're saying time dot time difference instead of object dot. And that is -8. And now with this, only the value is different, but we have everything in our class to complete the task. Okay, so just copy and paste whatever you have done for Greenwich Mean Time. Just change Pacific Standard Time, PST, and that is also same, right? For both objects, we are going to do it. Okay, now you can see the GMT and PST time has been displayed. Okay, so this is for problem number 5. So next we are going to start discussing about problem number 6. I will let you to think about it. Then we can complete it. We'll discuss the algorithm first, then we'll complete it later. Okay. So next problem is converting it to PST to EST. Oh, no. Is it PST to EST? Okay. So second is going to be the PST to EST. No. PST, EST, but yeah, PST to EST time location. Can you tell me the same thing? What is the PST to EST time difference? Do the Google search. +3, right? Yeah. So you can simply copy and paste the code and do this time difference. Try to do it. You have to complete it before you come to the class on Tuesday. Okay. Do the same problem here for instead of GMT to PST, you have to do PST to EST conversion, but the time difference is 3. Okay, +3. Okay, let's complete it. I'm not going to discuss the algorithm because it is going to be same. The algorithm is going to be same. Okay, so you have to define the class and then define the constructor to get the hours and minutes and print method to print the output, instantiate the object with the given time and print method, okay, convert time difference and conversion and then print both timings. Okay, you're going to use the same 10:15 and 12:45 as the input. Okay, it's almost same. So complete it, then we'll discuss the result. So BMT to EST conversion, it's very easy, right? Just copy the whole code. Okay, here it is PST to EST conversion. Time difference, everything is same. Okay. Pacific Standard Time, this is going to be the Eastern Standard Time. What is the time difference? +3, right? 3. Simple. The logic is same. I don't need to explain the logic. Logic is same. Okay, so constructor, time difference, init, and print method, and values are passed. Okay, and then initially it is going to be 0, and then printing out, and the time difference is +3. Okay, so problem number 5 is done. So next class, we are going to solve the remaining 2 problems. So the next problem that we are going to solve is 7th one. Write a program to get the time from the user in PST and convert it into EST. Okay, same as your 6, where you have done the PST to EST conversion. So you know the time difference between the PST to EST is +3. So we know the formula, but the only difference is we are going to prompt the user to enter the input. Okay, so we're going to use setters, getters, or we're going to get whatever we need to do to get the input. We can either use getter or setter, or we can do it without getters and setters. So we will try it with setters. Okay, we're going to use the setter concept to get the input that is entered by the user, and then we are going to use that input and calculate the time difference and print the result. Okay, so only difference is we're going to use some more methods in the class for setters and getters. Okay, let me show you how it should look like so that you'll get some idea. Then we'll move on to the algorithm. Okay. So like this, you're going to enter enter the time, and then you have to enter the hours and the minutes. Then it will give you the time in PST to EST. Ready? Okay. First, let's discuss the algorithm. Then we'll move on to the coding part. So as usual, we have to define the class, okay? And we're going to define the constructor through which we're going to instantiate the object. So this time we're going to deal with the input parameters, okay? That is hours and minutes here. So we're going to use setter function for hours and minutes because we are going to get the input from the user. So those input, they will be passed to setters and setters for hours and minutes. And then we are going to define a function for the conversion. Okay. So we are going to define a conversion function like that, like we did in the previous one. And then to print the output. Okay. You can even copy and paste all the methods for printing, all those things you can copy and paste. Only changes setters. That is the first part of the algorithm. And the second part, we are going to instantiate the object from the user to enter the hour and minute, and then call the setter methods and pass that input variable that we have saved. Okay. And then assign it to the input with the object when we do the object instantiation. And then finally, we are going to call the print method to print the output. You can look at the output. We want the output to be like this. Okay. So we have to print it like this in our print method, or you can even do it separately like this. Okay, the last section, call the function to convert the time and then print it in both PST and EST. So this is the algorithm. So let's decode it and write the coding. Okay. Okay. So I'm constructing, I'm defining a class. First method is going to be the constructor. All the class methods should have self as a default parameter to represent the object. And then we can access the attribute only through this self object. Okay, so the purpose of the constructor here is to allocate some memory space. We are going to use the setters to get the input from the user. Okay, so the thumb rule is set underscore and whatever parameter that you have to deal, that parameter. But you don't need to use the same name. You can just use any name as setter, but this is kind of thumb rule. And then first parameter self. And then whatever you got from the user, that will be saved in the variable. And I'm going to name that variable as user hour. And then we have to assign this user hour, which we have saved in a variable, to this constructor attribute. Okay. So to do that, self dot hour equal to user underscore hour. Setter for hour. And now we're going to do the setter for minute. So feel free to copy and paste and change the values to minutes. Okay. So the setter for handling the minute value, user minute. So here I used hours as the attribute. So I'm changing it to hours and minutes. So attribute values has been assigned with the variable that we are going to pass. And then for the for the method conversion, we are creating a method convert. Okay. Again, we have to pass the cell for all the methods in the class as a default parameter. Then we are going to change the very attribute value. See, we are not changing the user hour. We are changing the attribute value here. Okay, so for the conversion here, they ask for the conversion of PST to EST, which is 3 hours. That is a plus 3. Okay, so that I have added. And then finally, we're going to define the method for printing the result. Formatting, how we want to format it, that should be inside this. And then self dot hours self dot minutes. It's the formatting. So we have defined the class. Now we're going to use all those methods to solve this problem. So first thing, object instantiation. So I'm just instantiating object for this class. Okay. Okay. Now we are going to prompt the user to enter any value. Okay, for prompting, and that will be converted as integer because there is no floating point type. Enter the hours. And then do the same thing for minute. User minute, enter the minutes. Okay, we have passed that and we have saved it in these two variables, and these variables has to be passed to the setters method. How can you pass it? Okay, by calling the method, right? With object. So T1 is the object, and what is the method? Set underscore hour is the method, and we have to pass these variable user hour. Okay, passing the values to setters. Do the same thing for minutes. Okay. Finally, we want to print it out. Okay, so first we want to print it in the Pacific Pacific Standard Time. Okay, so copying and pasting it from the previous one. T1 dot print time. And then we're going to do the conversion for that T1 dot. So actually, instead of typing, you can use dot and tab. That will give you the methods. Okay. Use dot. After dot, it will pick the methods what is assigned to the object because this object is assigned, instantiated already through the class. So when you use the tab, that will give you the possible methods that you can use. Okay. So once I type tab, then I can just select convert from that. Okay. Then do the same thing for printing out the Eastern time, and then call the method and print it. Okay. So let me explain it again. The class definition, which has all the methods, constructor, setter for hour, setter for minute, and a method for conversion and method to print out. And then we have instantiated the object and we pass the input, prompt the user to enter the input, and we save that input with the variables. And we are passing these variables to the setter method by object.method name. That with that syntax, we are just calling it. And then we are printing out the time. Okay, before that, we are just doing the conversion before we calculate the Eastern time. So it says enter hours and then enter minutes. Okay. So this is how you can solve this. When you need to get the input from the user, always go for the setters method. Okay. Now let's speak about the last one. Write a code to perform web scraping application. Okay. Web scraping. You know what is web scraping? Scrap the content from the website. Okay. Scrap the content from the website and print it out. So that's called web scraping. And let's look at the algorithm first. It should be new to you. Okay. You have learned web designs, right? So you should be able to understand but you're going to see how you can scrap the content, HTML content from the website by using the URL. So Python has a lot of the main advantage about Python is it has a lot of packages in almost all applications. Networking, web page development, full stack web page development, cybersecurity. Okay, it has a lot of package, right? So Python has a package to do the web scraping as well. Okay, so the web scraping package is called URLlib. Okay, the URLlib has a lot of models to deal with this scrapping, web scraping, and we're going to use a model called Request. Okay, so this Request model is there in URLlib package. Okay, you're going to learn about what is module, what is package, how you can create your own in the upcoming sessions. Okay, in upcoming modules. So we are going to use the Request model from the URLlib package. Package is like a folder. Okay, module is like a file. Okay, so we are going to use the module to read and display the contents of the HTML file. Okay, so we have to import the URLlib package. You know how to import it, right? From the URLlib package, you're going to import the request method. So once you import it, then what you're going to do, you're going to use that request method, then it will become the object, right? Agree? Once you import it, you can simply call that module as an object. So object, that is request dot. So from that request module, we are going to use a method called URL open method. Okay, we are going to use this method, that is a function from this module. Okay, so this URL open, what it will do, it will just read the URL. Whatever the website that you're going to pass, you will pass it as a string, as an input to this URL open, and that will be saved in a variable. You can just give any variable name. It will be saved in a variable. Now this variable will become what? An object. Okay. So this using this as an object, you say object dot method. So this URL open, this request has a lot of methods like URL open, read, decode. Okay, we are going to use these three methods. So read, what it will do, it will just read the HTML content. Okay, it will just read the HTML content, and that will be saved in the variable called binary B response. It will be saved as binary value. Okay, binary value. See, that's how the system will understand everything, whatever it is processing. It will be understood as a binary value, right? So it will be saving all those values, but as a binary value. Do you remember that character encoding that you learned in web design? What is the purpose of character encoding? It will just convert anything to binary values, alphabetical character, numerical value, or scientific symbol, whatever it is, all of those values have a equivalent binary representation. Okay, so if you remember, in web design, we have used that UTF-8 for the character set encoding in the meta tag. The same thing. We are going to use the decode method, which is also part of this request module. Okay, so request module, from the request module, we are going to use three methods: URL open method, read method, and decode. These three methods are there in request module. We are going to use all these three methods to perform this action, where the URL open will help you to read the URL, and the read will help you to read the coding as a binary, and then the decode will help you to convert the binary to the alphabetical, or in a way that you can read, the human can read. Okay, so it will just convert it according to the conversion. So here you can give any character encoding, but here we are giving the mostly used one, UTF-8 character encoding. So that will convert everything and save it in this variable, which we are going to print it out. Okay, so when you run it, it will just give you the coding for that website. So web scraping. So the actual web scraping will be like you will ask, and the questions will be scrapped from the website, and then it will be displayed. This is not that website. You're just getting all the code. Okay, so let's you can start writing the code. Okay, I'll write the code. I hope it's be much more easy for you comparatively. So URL lib, that is URL library. Okay, from that, we are going to import the module, which is request. And then we are creating an object response or ES, where this request will become the object. Request dot URL open. Can give any website name. So since the name is the URL is simple, and since I know it, I will just use that, but you can use any URL. Okay, and then binary, it will be saved in binary, right? Binary, where this will become the object, that variable will become the object. Regs dot, I'm just using different variable name because I just want you to understand that there is nothing with the names. It's just it will become the object. Okay. Res, and the method that we're going to use is read method, which will read and save that in the binary as a binary code in this binary. Okay, binary variable. And then finally, we're going to retrieve the HTML code from that. For that, this bin will become the object. From that, we're going to use decode. And what kind of character encoding we are going to use? UTF-8. You can even use the ASCII. Okay. And then when you print it out, this variable, HTML variable, you will get the answer. Okay. So no matter how big the file is, it will just scratch it and put it window. Okay, this is how you can scrap the website. So that's all about the 8 problems. We have solved 8 problems from class. Okay, hope you got good understanding how to define a class, how to define the methods in the class, how to do the object instantiation, how to use setters and getters. Okay, and then how to pass these, access the methods and attributes through the object, and can apply it in your problem solving skill and solve any kind of problem like you did. Okay, in all these 8 problems.